Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I'm working on an art journal page, so get comfy and let's get crafty. I have a whole bunch of supplies on my desk right now, like a whole bunch. So quickly going through them, I have some white gesso, I have some liquid matte medium, I have 2 containers of acrylic paint, a purple and a green or a turquoise. These are an iridescent paint, or I think it's called Halo. I have some Inktense pencils in red, orange, and yellow. I have a piece of mixed media paper. I have some paint brushes, one for water, one for gesso and stuff. I have a piece of this Tim Holtz tissue paper. I don't know what it's called, melange or something like that. I have a piece of watercolor paper, the Altenew Peony Bouquet stamp set, the Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers, some Tim Holtz rub-ons. I have a homemade circle stencil that I just used punches and made a whole bunch of circles on this piece of cardboard. And I have my waffle flower circle dies. And this all comes together, I promise. But first, I want to stamp the peony. Now, I am only using the outline image of this peony because I'm going to color it with the watercolor pencils, or rather my Inktense pencils. I am going to stamp this 3 times with this VersaFine Clair Nocturne Black ink because it is waterproof and it leaves a nice black image. And even on watercolor paper, I only had to stamp this 1 time for each of the flowers. For the first 2 flowers, I just flipped my cardstock around. For the 3rd flower, I did need to move the stamp just a little bit to get the 3rd one on there. I do have the coordinating dies for this stamp set, so I will be using the dies to cut them out once they're all colored. Now, I did not make you watch all the coloring because this is not a crime and coloring video. This is an art journal video. So I'm going to show you the things that I did for each of, and show you just a little bit of the coloring for each of the flowers. On the first flower, I wanted to transition from the red to the orange, and I pulled out my water brush. For the insides of the peonies, I didn't even try to add highlight and low light because they're still kind of closed, so nothing's going to be getting in, there's no sun getting in there. Once I got to some of the more open petals, I did the red where the shadow would be and filled some of the rest of it in with the orange, and then starting from the highlight, I added water working back toward the dark color so that it would still have a shadow and a highlight. And I did each petal independently. But when I got to the end of this flower, I realized I could put all of the pencil down at the same time, like put all the red in, put all the orange in, as long as I had the red and the orange in and did not activate one at a time. It blended fabulously. On the petals where I tried to activate the red and then add the orange, I did have to go back and pick up some of that red ink. And I did that just by taking my wet brush to the tip of my pencil. You can see here I've got most of those petals finished. Fun fact, did you know that peonies bloom because the ants lick the petals open? Have you ever seen an unbloomed peony? They are like rock hard, closed up tight. And then the ants come and lick the petals open. I have 3 gorgeous peony bushes right by my front door. And when the peonies are ready to bloom, all of a sudden there's tons of ants climbing all over these flowers. Just wait until lick the petals open. Totally cool thing about nature. Okay, first flower done. Hopping into the 2nd flower, I want to go from orange to yellow. So I did kind of the same thing. I started with the dark in the middle. I used the orange for the shadow and added the yellow, and then colored from the no color place into the shadow to create the highlight. Again, if I tried to ink up one color at a time, I did have to add some more pigment to it. And then the 3rd is the red to yellow blend. Now this one was a little bit trickier because they're not right next to each other on the color wheel. So I had to be very careful how I was adding the pigment. You can see here I've added the red first, blending it out, and then putting some yellow in it. And I just added the yellow by going to the tip of the brush with my water brush. So now my flowers are all colored and cut out, and it's time to start on the actual page itself. Now I have a plan for this page. It's kind of a weird plan, but I have a plan. My first course of action is to adhere this piece of tissue paper to my art journal page with the matte gel, or the liquid matte medium matte gel. Oh my heavens. Can't speak English tonight. Don't know what my words are because words are hard and this mama is worn out today. So I put the liquid matte medium onto my art journal page. I pressed the tissue paper down onto the page, and then I added a layer over the top of the tissue. That will do two things: create a non-porous surface, but it also will help it adhere because some of that glue does go through the tissue paper. So once I've got that all glued down, I'm going to heat set that with my heat tool and trim it off with a pair of scissors. And it's a little too prominent, so I'm going to pull out my gesso, and using a wet paint brush, I'm just going to grab some gesso out of that pot. This is the oldest pot of gesso in my classroom. Pot of gesso in my classroom. Oh my gosh, you guys! I was just talking to my daughter who's student teaching right now. This is the oldest pot of gesso in my craft room. So it is a little thick and it does need some water to get it moving. I'm trying to use it all up. Anyways, once I got that gesso added on and heat set, you can still see the text in the butterfly, but it does push it back a little bit so it's less prominent. And now I'm going to add the acrylic. And I did go ahead and go into my drawer and pull out a pewter. So these are acrylic paints I purchased on Amazon. I think they're called Jacquard brand, and they have a mica in them. So they're kind of shiny and pretty. And what I want to do on this background page is go from that pewter to the purple to the turquoise and kind of have it flow. I did not achieve the flow I was looking for. And there are a couple of reasons why. First of all, I probably should have been working on a heavy watercolor paper instead of a mixed media paper because I put a ton of water in that paint. And then I added more water to my page itself. And when I was done, I realized I could have used alcohol inks. It would have done exactly what I was hoping to achieve without being such a pain. Now, the pewter was not as dark as I wanted it, so I went into my paint drawer and pulled out the Distress Black Soot acrylic paint, added a ton of water to it, added more water to the page, pulled out my heat tool to get it flowing, picked up the drips with the baby wipe, and then I went ahead and added the purple. The purple wasn't as dark as I wanted either, but I really wanted that mica in it. I wanted that shimmer and shine. Now, looking at the page when all said and done, you can totally see it. So it was worth it. But again, like I said, this was not flowing the way I had imagined, even with all of that water. So I think that like a liquid paint or an alcohol ink would have been just a little bit more giving me the results I was looking for. However, I still love this. I love the color combination, the black to the purple to the green. I love that it kind of flowed and blended together. I love that the mica is still super present. And when you look at it in real life, you can see that shimmer and shine. So once I got it kind of how I wanted it, cleaned up the sides and the back a little bit, picked it up and let it flow around. I did heat set that with my heat tool. And now I'm going to start with another element to the background. I am not going to cut the page with my dies. I am going to, if I can ever get my fingernail under them, choose one of these dies to use just to trace. I want to add a circle kind of right here in the top center of the page. And I'm going to trace this circle die with the black Inktense pencil. So I'm just going to hold that die in place and go around it a few times with the pencil. I'm trying to keep the circle as circle-ish, symmetrical as I can, but let's face it, when you add water, it flows. So it did not stay perfectly circular. I'm pulling out that water brush again and just activating that pigment. And I realized, oh, I kind of want this a little more prominent. Also, so I just kind of freehanded, went around it. Hindsight, I probably didn't need it more. I didn't need more pigment. In my brain, because of what I want to do with the circle, I thought I needed it to stand out a little bit more. I probably should have just continued to add water to it and waited till the end, because it does lose some of its circular feel. That being said, I don't hate it. And this art journal page actually came to my brain while I was sleeping. Like, not sleeping like as in a dream, but I don't sleep great at night. So when I wake up, in order to keep my brain from turning on, I turn on YouTube and I turn it really low and I put the screen face down so I have to hold really still to hear what I'm hearing. And because whatever was playing must have been talking about purples and inks and flowing, and I don't even know which channels I was watching, because I woke up in the morning and my tablet had turned itself off because I didn't push play the next video. So anyway, I woke up and then had this idea in mind to have these dark, foreboding, kind of flowing colors with a focal point that was in stark contrast, completely other side of the color wheel. So my next step is I'm taking this homemade circle stencil and I'm going through that with that black Inktense pencil again. I'm just trying to figure out where to add some more circles. I don't really like that group of 3 kind of hanging off the large circle, but that's okay because one of them is going to disappear on purpose. It kind of looked a little weird to me. My water brush was empty, so I just sprayed a little bit of water on my glass mat and went to town, activating that ink. I've probably said this before, so if you have already heard this, ignore me for about 30 seconds. Inktense pencils are ink in pencil form that is permanent once you have activated all the pigment and it has dried. So they are perfect for this style of creating, because I'm going to go back over it and back over it and back over it with water, and once it's dry, it doesn't smear anymore. Now I've pulled out a purple pencil to add a little bit of a purple shadow to those top 2, or the first 2 of the smaller circles. Not really. This is one of those times I probably should have stopped and just let it be, but I felt like they needed something else. So I just added a little bit of purple to the circles, and then activated that pigment with my water brush. So now it's time to place these peonies on my art journal page. So originally my plan was to use the red to orange, and then the red to yellow, and then orange to yellow. But that was, I don't know. I fussed with it for a bit. I fussed with it for a lot of bit. I cut a lot of the fussing out, so you didn't have to watch that because, well, my hands were in the way and it was boring. But in the end, this is what I have. However, it needs something. It just needs something. So I pulled out these rub-ons, the Tim Holtz rub-ons, and I'm going to use some of the numbers. And I'm going to put a section down in the bottom right and a section up in the top left. Now, funniest story in all of the history of funny stories, and by funny, I mean super not funny and totally irritating. All of these rub-on sets come with a popsicle stick, right? And no matter what tool you have in your craft room, for whatever reason, this ridiculous popsicle stick is still the best tool for rub-ons. I couldn't find it. Could not find my popsicle stick. Every package has one. Couldn't find the popsicle stick. So first thing I did was grab this ball stylus, but it was just kind of scratching the plastic, not really pushing that rub-on onto the page. So then I grabbed my Teflon bone folder, and then I grabbed another stylus with a bigger ball head, and eventually I got all of those rub-ons onto my page. It did take a minute. I did not make you watch that part either because, again, that was boring. And here's the not funny part of this. Guess where that stupid popsicle stick was? In the tool organizer, on my desk, right next to that stylus. Yes, ma'am. I must be blind. However, we're moving on, because at this point I have not discovered where the popsicle stick is. So I've just pulled out a bone folder and that ball stylus. I'm going to go to town again. I'm going to scratch these rub-ons into that page. I'm going to lift off that carrier sheet, and voila, we have some visual interest. That's all I needed, visual interest. Because the dark paint kind of blocked out some of that text from the tissue paper, I needed to bring some of it back to the not quite foreground, but not quite background, right? So here's where I decide to take that red peony and kind of pull it farther down toward the bottom of the circle to hide that other circle that I didn't love so much. And I do want these peonies to look like they're going around the circle, like they're in kind of a circular swag. So I'm going to add some Tombow Mono liquid glue to the center of the peonies and place them right along that circle, which is why I should not have worried about the definition of the circle until I had the peonies on. Like, I shouldn't have gone through and added some more of that black pigment, but whatever, it's fine. You know, you learn things, right? So then I decided to do the red to orange peony, and then the orange to yellow peony, and then the red to yellow peony at the top, kind of separate them so they don't flow quite like a gradient like my intent was, but I like this better. So I did put just that Tombow glue in the center of the backs. I did not worry about gluing the whole thing down, the edges lift up, whatever, it's fine. I did think that we needed a little more green in that top right corner, so I brought in a turquoise green Derwent pencil, and I just put that right along the circle and then activated that with my water brush. It just needed just a little bit more, just a pop. And because green is my favorite, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, I love the purple, but I loved the green. So the Chit Chat stickers, these have been in my drawer forever and ever and ever. I'm trying to use the things I have before I buy more of the things. So I actually picked a few of these. I picked one that says, choose to see the good stuff. Then I picked one that says, live, create, tell the story. And then I picked one that says, creativity takes courage. And doesn't really make a complete sentence, but it makes a complete thought or thought pattern. I did readjust the one I put on the top. I felt like after I had the other two on, it was a little bit too wonky. I contemplated going around those text boxes with that green pencil. Instead, I just added a little bit of green to the bubbles at the bottom of the page. Because again, green's my favorite. I just love it. I love all the greens. I did need to add some white back to the bottom left-hand corner. So I pulled out a Jelly Roll number 10 pen. And once I got it going on my finger, I just added some white squiggle lines. The intent is to make them kind of sort of look like flower stems, but not necessarily these flower stems. Like maybe there's some other flowers in the background there. I did kind of draw some heart-shaped leaves on the stems. This is just to add a little bit of bright to that bottom corner because it's a little dark. I mean, I wanted it that way, but it's a little dark. We'll add a little bit of white gel pen down there, make it look all pretty. I did add a couple of doodle lines to the top right. Probably didn't need that. Don't love those as much, but it is what it is. We're moving on. Now, because this has been beat up to death and so much water has been added to it, I'm going to mount this to a piece of lightweight chipboard. This is the back of a pattern paper packaging, and I'm going to use this really strong double-sided adhesive. This is depending on where you buy it, it's either called Suquain tape or tape and tear, whatever, because you don't have to cut it with scissors. You can just tear it against your fingernail. But I'm going to put a piece of this adhesive on all four sides and a couple down the middle. It is the only way in my craft room to get the backing paper off of this adhesive is to use that paper piercer, the pokey tool. And you can see clearly the front wasn't completely dry. Don't care because I'm covering it up. See how that goes? I'm just lining that up with the bottom and left-hand corners and using some pressure from the back side so that I don't accidentally lift up one of those flowers by rubbing my hands across it. Then I'm going to trim this off with my paper trimmer. This is my Fiskars wire guided trimmer. Probably should have pulled out like my guillotine trimmer because the blade was kind of catching on those multiple layers of like the cardstock, but whatever. I need to add holes so I can add this to one of my art journal binders. The hole punch did go through the yellow peony. Don't care. Don't care. It's got to go somewhere. And then I need to sign and date my page. So I'm just going to write my name, Jennie, at the bottom corner here and date it April of 2023 because I don't care what day it was. That's just me. So here's a zoom in close up with a little bit better lighting, obviously. Photoshop is everything. I hope you enjoyed watching me create this art journal page. I have another couple of videos here I think you might like. I've also added a subscribe button. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. Give me a thumbs up, tell YouTube you like what I did. Leave me a comment down below, and have a really great day.